everybody, and welcome to the weekly scopes from the 1st to the 7th of June. Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's weekly scopes. If you've heard this before, you can skip, but this is just the intro on how I formulate these astrology weekly readings. I use astrology and my intuition to give you advice how you can practically use the knowledge of the stars and the planets and apply them to your life. So my weekly scopes are all based on GMT time and on Vedic Constellational Astrology. So now I'm just going to explain what Vedic Constellation Astrology is and how it differs from Western astrology. So the precession of the equinox is sort of like something that happens in astronomy and astrology, where the Earth's axis undergoes a slow circular motion over 26,000 years, and basically this means that this motion causes a shift in the position of the equinoxes, and also the calculation Vedic and Western astrologies use. So around 2,000 years ago, the tropical and sidereal Vedic astrology signs of astrology were aligned in the same position. So if the sun was in Scorpio in Vedic astrology, it was also in the constellation of Scorpio in Western astrology. But because of the precession of the equinoxes, this has caused a gradual westward sort of like drift of the tropical Western signs. So basically these signs and the Western signs shift 1 degree with every 72 years. So as a result of this ongoing shift, when Western astrology says the sun is in the constellation of Pisces, it's typically in the constellation of Aquarius. Still, this is because the degree, orb and the date for Western and Vedic astrology are 24 degrees, 24 days apart. So in Western astrology, the sun enters the constellation of Pisces around the 19th of February each year, but actually the sun doesn't arrive into the constellation of Pisces until the 13th to the 15th of March each year. And Vedic astrology takes this into account because it's based on the fixed star positions, and Vedic astrologers use sidereal calculations. So as a result, Vedic astrology takes into account the actual positions of the constellations in the sky at any given time, and also considers the precession of the equinox, adjusting for the shift in the position of the equinoxes over time. But in terms of Western astrology follows the tropical zodiac, which is based on the seasons rather than fixed star positions. Western astrologers also do not directly account for the precession of the equinox in their calculations as well, so this results in slightly different calculations and interpretations that are given whether we're using Western astrology or Vedic astrology. So yeah, as I said, Western astrology uses specific dates. So every year, regardless of where the sun actually is at the sky, the sun moves into Pisces around the 19th of February. So yeah, this discrepancy, this misalignment between the tropical zodiac and the actual positions of the constellations has led to a discrepancy between Vedic astrology and Western astrology. So I consider the actual where the sun and the moon are and where Mars and Venus are at any given time, and this is how I formulate these sort of like weekly scopes. So yeah, thanks for listening to this, and let's dive into this week's weekly scope. Okay, so now I'm just going to explain what parallels and contra-parallels are in astrology, because I use them in my chart interpretation. So declination in astrology is the measure of how far a celestial body is, such as the sun, whether it's either north or south of the celestial equator. And the celestial equator is an imaginary line in the sky above the Earth's equator, which us astrologers use in our interpretation. So parallels happen when two planets are on the same declination. Either both planets are on the north side side, or either both planets are on the south side, and this alignment increases the influence of the involved planets. So it's similar to a conjunction aspect, as it amplifies their energy, making the effects of the planets more pronounced. Contra-parallels, on the other hand, happen when two planets are on the same declination, but one is in the north and one is in the south. So this alignment creates tension, which is similar to an opposition aspect, and it can lead to conflict, challenges and inner struggles between the energies of the planets involved. So contra-parallels highlight areas of friction or contrast in our lives, urging us to find balance between the opposing forces at play. When transiting parallels and contra-parallels happen, they can sort of like trigger significant events, shifting consciousness and periods of intense growth and transformation. So I look at these aspects closely during chart analysis to understand how planetary energies interact and influence each other during a specific time frame, to pinpoint key periods for personal development, relationship dynamics or career shifts, and other shifts like karmic shifts and stuff like that. Because I just find using contra-parallels and parallels gives me more depth in interpretation, so I use them. So contra-parallels and parallels in astrology serve as markers for potential challenges or breakthroughs, guiding us towards more self-awareness, love, acceptance, understanding, forgiveness for ourselves and others, and shifts in consciousness and growth. So overall, just a shift in our mindset if we allow for it. So parallels and contra-parallels just kind of like provide valuable insights into the complexities and nuances of the astrological interactions between planetary movements. So yeah, that's the end of what contra-parallels and parallels are. So this week we've just got one aspect that's influencing us majorly, right? So we've got Jupiter making a semi-sextile to Uranus. So I'm trying a new format. At the beginning I'm going to do the main aspects, then I'm going to talk about what content creators should generate, or what you as a content creator or just a creative person should focus your energies on creating for the week, and then I'm going to do the day-to-day breakdown. So I'm Amani and I am your holistic karmic astrological life coach here. So as I said, the main aspect controlling us this week is Jupiter making a semi-sextile to Uranus, and this entered on the 26th of May, is exact at 4:47 p.m. on the 1st of June, and it leaves us on the 7th of June at 3:07 p.m. So as you see, it's got a major influence this week, and Jupiter is in the constellation of Gemini and Uranus is in the constellation of Taurus. So it's the beginning of the month, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you where all the planets are so we know where they are at the beginning of June. So the Sun is in Taurus, Moon is in Cancer, Mercury is also in Taurus, Venus is in Aries, Mars is in Cancer, Jupiter is in Gemini, Saturn's in Pisces, Uranus is in Taurus, Neptune is in Pisces, and Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn, and Chiron is in Aries as well. And the Moon's North Node is retrograde in Aquarius. So yeah, so this week's main aspect, I'm just going to break it down. So ultimately it creates Jupiter making a semi-sextile with Uranus, right? Creates friction between our desire to grow, to expand our mind with new ideas, and our need to revolutionize and be practical in matters, right? So it can be kind of like binge watching educational TikToks while also feeling the need to completely reinvent your budget act. The energy is both mentally stimulating and practically disruptive. With the Sun and Mercury also in Taurus during this period, there's a strong pull toward making tangible, touchable changes rather than just making theories, right? So in terms of the psychological tea about this aspect, well, this transit hits different because it's asking us to bridge two seemingly opposite energies. First, we've got Jupiter in Gemini, masculine air energy that can make us in our head and curious about everything, overthinking. And then we've got Uranus in Taurus, the grounded, feminine, fixed, stubborn, bull-like energy, right? But it's in Uranus, so it is also, wanting us to be stubborn and grounded, but it's also pushing us and shaking us up to get outside of our comfort zone, right? And it wants us to also think about the way we think about making ourselves secure, especially when it comes to our money and possessions, right? So we may find ourselves randomly coming up with brilliant solutions to financial issues or having sudden realizations about how to use our resources better. And the semi-sextile aspect means that these insights require us to, do some hard work, put in the effort to, carry them out, to implement. They won't just manifest without our conscious participation, From the karmic and spiritual dimensions, this week's main aspect is given major balance the scales energy. So it's given us Libra energies, but, Taurus is ruled by Venus, right, which also rules Libra. So, of course, so our souls are given a chance to work through lessons about how we grow ourselves intellectually. Right about now everybody just wants the short form version, which is kind of hard for me because I like to go in depth, but anyway, how we can become more critical in our thinking, how we can grow intellectually, how we can build the patience to do that, because we can just learn everything or think we can learn everything in short videos, right? It wants us to think about our past lives where we either clung too tightly to material security or got lost in abstract, airy, fairy, lofty ideas without grounding them in practicality. And I know a lot about that because I have a lot of ideas and I've had to learn to, ground them. So spiritually, it's a divine invitation to bring higher wisdom, Jupiter, down to earth through flashes of innovation and insight, which is represented by Uranus. The universe is basically sliding into our DMs saying, hey, it's time to make your brilliant ideas actually useful in the real world, right? So now I'm going to talk about the wins and the challenges of this week. So on the slay win side, right, it gives us a chance to, come up with unexpected money making ideas that actually work. It gives us the mental flexibility and the practical innovation, being open to newness, right? It allows us to work with technology, AI and other tools that can improve our life. It gives us the ability to explain complex concepts in accessible ways, and it gives us fresh solutions to stubborn material problems. But on the struggle side, we can have information overload, and this can lead to practical paralysis, a resistance to change despite knowing better. We can start too many new projects without finishing any, and we can just feel torn between intellectual exploration and our practical needs, right? And it can bring unpredictable communication glitches, glitches like freeze. That's my impression of a glitch, by the way, but you can't see that. I kind of froze. But anyway, how can we make this week's main aspect work for us? Okay, so with Mars in Cancer at this time, working with this week's major aspect as well, it's a good energy, a good week for us to brainstorm freely and filter our ideas, our wild ideas, through a practical lens. Mars in Cancer gives us the motivation, but our motivation may be tied to us feeling secure, right? So innovations that help us feel more protected and secure, emotionally stable, right, will gain kind of traction, momentum. So we can try learning a new financial app, exploring innovative investment options, or finding tech solutions to our everyday problems. This isn't a time for either pure theory or inflexibility, especially when it comes to us being impractical. It's about finding that sweet spot where our brilliant ideas can make our life better. And remember, with Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at this time, there's a deeper transformation that's happening, over the next 4 to 5 months over social structures, changing them, and, taking back our personal authority over the information we consume and the way we consume it, being the influencer, not being influenced, taking bits and bobs from different influencers and making it our own, and becoming more innovative in our thinking and thinking about how you can contribute to the much bigger changes down the road that our world needs, because I believe everyone's got their niche, yeah? Okay, so this is a new section that I'm doing, and it's mantras for the week. And I don't really subscribe to the astrology that says because your sun's in Aries, you're like an Aries. Some of you could have your sun making a conjunction to Pluto, which is in Taurus, which can make you more like a Taurus. So in terms of the zodiac breakdown for each week, I'm giving it towards if you've got the majority of, like, say, Aries energy in your chart, or Taurus energy in your chart, or aspects to the second house in that case, right? So the mantra for this week for Aries is lead with courage but don't forget to listen. True strength lies in balance. If you're Taurus, nurture your roots but don't be afraid to let your spirit, grow and soar. Gemini, speak your mind this week but let your heart guide your words. Cancer, protect your nest, your home this week, but don't hide your light, share it generously. Leo, shine bright, but remember the spotlight shines brightest when shared. Virgo, heal through service, but don't forget to nurture your own soul. Libras, your main focus this week is that, balance is beautiful, but don't lose yourself in the scales, people pleasing yourself away. Scorpio, dive deep but don't drown in the mystery. Trust the process, trust the journey. Sagittarius, explore freely this week but don't forget to anchor your adventures in practicalities. Capricorn, lead with ambition but don't forget to feel the journey, Aquarius, innovate boldly, make changes, but stay grounded. Genius needs gravity, And Pisces, dream big but don't forget to set your feet on the ground. So yeah, that's the week and your mantra for this week, guys. So yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about what content creators should talk about this week. So Jupiter's in Gemini, so and it's making a semi-sextile this week to Uranus in the steady Taurus, and this creates a perfect storm for content that bridges innovation, newness with practical value and oldness and being fixed, and with the Sun and Mercury also in Taurus while Jupiter expands in Gemini, it means that in general people are craving groundbreaking ideas and practical applications, like, astrology, I'm an Aries and I've got Moon conjunct Pluto, whatever, but how can I practically use this in my day-to-day life? That sort of content, yeah? So making content about how we can use innovative apps, AI and technology to help us manage our lives better, manage our resources, our investments, our time, and the tension between Jupiter's expansive ideas and Uranus's practical energy, talking about how we can, get out of our comfort zone, invite the new, while also sort of keeping in our comfort zone a bit, because a lot of the time we don't like change, we fear change, and then we get to like 50, 60, even 30 for some of you, and like, my life is always the same, but when we look at it, it's because we're not actually changing. So giving content and helping people with the practical ideas and tools that they can use to get outside of their comfort zone, to be open up to new, to let go of toxic thoughts and behaviours, and even relationships for some of you listeners that they need to let go of in order to have a better life. Also maybe do an educational breakdown with Saturn in Pisces, tutorials that simplify, complex financial concepts or spiritual approaches to material security can hit different right now. So just thinking about, sometimes we're being kind of pushed to be like, get as much money as we can, but not everybody wants to be a millionaire. You just probably think you want to be a millionaire because you think it's going to make you happy. Money doesn't make you happy. I can vouch for that. What makes you happy is building your self-love and awareness and forgiveness and letting go of the past and moving on and just accepting yourself are some of the things. We've all got different things that can can make us happy, but yeah, also giving hacks on how we can, you know, connect with our emotional well-being and states, and to build healthy self-care regimes into our life as well, and how we can love those we care about in healthier ways, you know, and letting go of being codependent or being toxic in the way we relate to ourselves and others. With Venus and Chiron in Aries, we can really, people will be receptive to authentic storytelling about breaking free from our limiting beliefs and behaviours and relationships. And the North Node in Aquarius allows us to think about how we can work in groups in our family, in our relationship with our partners, friends, you know, to tackle our life problems, you know, and any content that is geared towards expanding your audience's mind and getting them outside of their comfort zone can do really well this week. So yeah, on the 1st of June, we've got Mercury making a parallel to Jupiter. This is exact at 2:15 a.m. on the 1st of June. It leaves us at the 2nd of June. Then we've got Mercury making a quintal to Neptune, which is exact at 10:07 a.m. today and leaves us later on tonight. Then we've got the Moon entering void of course at 11:41. Mercury entering out of bounds at 1:20 p.m. yeah, and Jupiter making its exact semi-sextile to Uranus, which is the main and only aspect controlling us all of this week, and this is exact today at 4:47 p.m. Mars enters Leo at 5:07, and Venus makes a conjunction to Chiron, which is exact at 9:10 today and leaves us on the 2nd of June at 11:09 p.m. yeah, so today it's a day where our mind, heart and spirit are being all activated in different ways, and this kind of, you know, creates a multi-dimensional, multi-layered growth opportunity that can be challenging and rewarding as well. So our mental world can get a major glow up when Mercury forms both a parallel with Jupiter and a quintal to Neptune, and Mercury grounded in Taurus that's running parallel to the expansive Gemini, as I said, means that we can just be more optimistic in our communication, more persuasive, so good for sales and marketing work as well. Our brain can be operating on premium fuel, you know, think the best petrol or fuel, you know, so our ideas can flow more easily. We're able to see the bigger picture while being able to keep practical and focus on the details that matter, you know. And Mercury's quintal to Neptune allows us to be divinely inspired by our higher selves or the higher power we believe in and gain more practical clarity. But with all Neptune energy, we just need to watch out for overindulging in toxic thoughts, relationships, ignoring red flags, and overindulging in drugs, alcohol and anything that can distract us, right? And the practical Taurian energy, because Mercury's there, right, is being kissed by Neptune's dreamy energy, and this builds a beautiful bridge between our logical mind and intuition. We can find ourselves having those aha moments where creative solutions to long-standing problems suddenly appear, and with Mercury going out of bounds later in the day, our thinking can become more unconventional, for better or for worse, right? And this is when we may have thoughts that are totally outside the box, or make connections with things that other people won't see, you know, they don't get. But we just need to watch out for becoming too chaotic, right? It is main character energy, but we just need to make sure we respect other people's boundaries. Yeah. With the Moon entering void, of course, this can create a dreamy, floaty feeling where our new ideas may not stick, you know. Think of this energy as an astrological free play, a time to reflect rather than push forward, you know. And when the Moon moves into the dramatic Leo in the afternoon, you know, we may just feel a shifting energy, giving us greater confidence and self-expression, and just ready to show ourselves off. But again, you know, try not to be too extra and overstep people's boundaries. And Venus's conjunction to Chiron in Aries allows us to focus on our self-worth, especially in our relationships. This is when Venus, which represents love, values and pleasure, merges with Chiron, the wounded healer, and this creates opportunities to confront old relationship wounds through being brave in our and direct in our communication. It wants us to take the initiative in healing ourselves and not waiting for others us to fix things, and it gives us the energy and the power to do that, you know. And it just reminds us to love ourselves enough to confront what hurts. Yes, it's easier to overindulge in our toxic ways of being and substances and stuff like that, but it's much more better for our overall well-being to confront our past so we can have a better future. So in terms of the wins and challenges of this day, the wins are it improves our communication skills and optimistic thinking. It can make us more creative in our inspiration and give us practical intuitive insights. It can lead to breakthrough ideas that challenge conventional thinking. It can give us the courage to confront and heal relationship wounds, right? It can increase our self-confidence and our capacity to express ourselves, you know, after the moon enters Leo and comes out of void of course. But the challenges today is that we can just experience mental, psychological overwhelm, too many ideas and lack that practicality. We can also have a difficulty focusing as Mercury goes out of balance for a couple of weeks, right? And the tension between wanting to grow and needing stability can cause us to be out of balance, and being emotionally vulnerable may feel uncomfortable. And in the morning we can just feel uncertainty because of the moon void of course, right? So to make the most of today's energy, you know, journal, meditate, finish existing projects rather than starting new ones, use Mercury, you know, Jupiter's parallel to improve our learning and have those important conversations, or focus on writing or content creation projects. Think outside of the box, you know, and do logical tasks that require precision. Express what we've been processing internally throughout the day, especially when the moon's into Leo. We can be more expressive, right? And just be proactive about having healing conversations in our relationships, dealing with problems rather than sweeping them under the rug, you know. And the direct Aries energy supports us being more honest and straightforward. So remember, you know, the Venus conjunction to Aries is giving us the permission to heal and be brave, you know, and be vulnerable, and to, you know, reminding us that there's strength in vulnerability, you know. And by working with rather than against these energies, we can transform whatever we want to transform today, you know. On the 2nd of June, the Sun makes a quintile to Saturn. This lasts until the 4th of June. It's exact at 11:04 today. So to the week, it brings, you know, a nice sort of energy, 72-degree angle between our essence, our core, our heart, our ego, represented by the Sun, and our inner boss, our inner disciplinarian, you know, which is represented by Saturn. Saturn is the one that it gives us the vibe check. Yes, you want to be famous. Yes, you want to be a doctor. Yes, you want to be the best you can, but how much do you want it? Are you prepared to change your day-to-day routine to reach your goals, you know? So with the Sun traveling through grounded Taurus and Saturn floating through the mystical Pisces, this aspect creates a unique alchemical transformative blend of earthy determination and spiritual structure routine, you know. So think of it as the universe offering us special creative glasses to see how limitations can actually become our secret superpower. The quintile aspect, which represents 1/5 of the zodiac wheel, isn't just about, you know, staying in the old. It's about, you know, getting out into the new. It brings flashes of inspiration about how discipline and self-expression can work together, how ego and focus can work together rather than against each other. And, you know, with this quintile energy, it reminds us that, you know, structure, routine can become the springboard, the canvas, the necessary evil, if you like, for creativity, not the cage of it, you know. It allows us to find creative solutions to long-standing challenges, you know. It activates the genius zone. This is what quintile sort of energy is all about. It's more inward, right? And this is where Saturn's boundaries actually improve the Sun's creative expression rather than limiting it. It's similar to how a riverbank doesn't restrict water but allows it to, you know, have more direction and flow. So our capacity to focus on work gets a serious upgrade. So it's a great energy to use to do the things that require both discipline and creativity and innovation, right? And there can be a beautiful maturity developing in how we express ourselves, not in a boring, adulting way, but in finding our authentic voice with established structures and routines. We can find authority figures or elders offering us unexpected support or inspiration today, recognizing that our unique gifts in ways that can surprise us. So, if you've got a parent that's always on your back, negatively, they may, say something nice today, or you may watch something inspirational, read a book, or listen to a podcast and find inspiration there. So it gives us the ability to find creative solutions within limitations, finding the gold, the diamond, the money in our limitations, in our adversities, building that resilience to get through them. It allows us to express ourselves through discipline practices. It bridges practical reality, which is represented by Taurus, with spiritual ideals, which is represented by Pisces. It gives us the ability to turn responsibilities into opportunities for creative growth and gain recognition for our mature, innovative approach. But we just need to watch out for, being too critical with ourselves and others, and looking for perfect rather than just going for it. We may experience moments where creative tension gets in the way of our free expression because of Saturn's need for us to structure. You remember, Saturn wants us to reach our goals, but it brings obstacles sometimes internally or externally because it just wants us to come up with the correct plan to reach our goals, right? And this often involves coming up with a routine that fits our temperament, rather than saying, oh well, every CEO wakes up at 5 a.m. and has this crazy morning routine. Saturn's all about, no, how can you create the routine for you that brings out the best in you, rather than copying others, because we're all unique and we have to remember that. We just have to watch out for not overthinking, and becoming too inflexible in our approach to self-expression as well, as we may get caught between Taurus's desire for concrete, touchable results and Pisces' boundless imagination, creating a dreaming yet stuck feeling if we don't channel this energy correctly, because Saturn's energy can sometimes manifest as fear of judgment, and this can lead to second guessing our unique gifts and talents, when we should be sharing them. And I can vouch for that, so yeah, sometimes just have to go and do the thing, So this quintile energy offers a masterclass in the art of creative discipline. Instead of viewing structure and freedom as opposite, use this time to discover how they can improve each other. The universe is literally showing us how to build sustainable foundations to be our most authentic self, So to make the best of this energy, set aside specific periods for creative work with clear boundaries. Reach out to mentors who can help you create routine, or watch people online that inspire you, and this can create a beautiful flow between teaching and learning, Think about how we can build spiritual practices into our life, into your life, like meditation with timers, journaling with prompts, or yoga sequences, so that balance between the Saturn energy and the Pisces energy there, Use this time to create a long-term plan with realistic timelines, because sometimes we can think, yeah, we want to write a book, but think it's only going to take us a certain amount of time, but it can take longer. This energy supports the perfect balance between vision and practicality. It wants us to look at the limitations in our life and ask, how can these boundaries actually inspire me rather than caging me in? It wants us to reframe what we think about restrictions and adversity in our life, and it allows us to have a creative audit without the boring parts. It's about finding your unique voice within tradition, not despite it, And when we work within this with this quintile's gifts and energy, we can discover that discipline doesn't diminish, reduce our light, but actually helps it shine more brilliantly and with a greater purpose, and we can just think about how setting boundaries can inspire us rather than looking at limitations and thinking, oh, I can never do this because of A, B, C, D. Just remembering how creative realizations can mature into self-expression, and how this can become a permanent tool in your spiritual and life toolkit that can help you deal with the complex dance of life between freedom and structure, routine. So yeah, On the 3rd of June, the moon's north node goes direct, the moon enters its first quarter moon phase, and Mercury makes a sister quadrant with Pluto, which is exact at 2:17 p.m, and Mercury's in Taurus and Pluto's in Capricorn. So today, this energy, the day starts with the north node, which is our soul's GPS, stationary and direct, going direct. So these energies, when combined with the moon enters the first quarter moon phase as well, the kind of removing the fog from our windscreen, while at the same time presenting us with a important, crossroads, fork in the road, where we have to make a decision of aligning our lifestyle with our genuine purpose and goal tick list today, so a lot of energies combining this week to give us a crystal clear perception on what we really want. And as the day progresses, with Mercury in Taurus and Pluto in Capricorn, it can create a pressure cooker where deep, possibly uncomfortable truths demand expression, after the moon and the north node gives us clarity on our thoughts and actions, asking us to think about, do our thoughts and daily habits actually provide us with the stability we need, or does it take away? And with Mercury and Pluto, making the sister quadrant, we can just get a look on how we can focus on the practical matters, and the relationship between our communication and our self-expression can become clear, and we can find ourselves in conversations that cut through the surface, the bull crap, and dive straight into the deep end. We may question authority, or we may feel forced to challenge the established routines in our relationships, and we may just have to face brutal truths. We may give them, or we may receive them, and it wants us to, go into today with open eyes, even though it may be uncomfortable, facing those brutal truths, right? And whatever comes up in conversation today, although it may hurt, remember it's only one in serving for us to be open to truth and, going past the things we're hiding from. It's also a good energy to research, to investigate, to dig deep into finances and stuff like that as well. So now I'm going to talk about the wins and loss of today's energy. So the wins is it gives us a clearer understanding of our soul's path forward. It gives us the opportunity to make decisions that align with our authentic purpose. It allows us to have insights into what we can do to change our day-to-day habits and how these can transform our lives. It gives us the ability to confront secrets and deep, previously hidden truths. It gives us a chance to adjust our communication style. It allows us to reflect, so we can reflect on the week so far, or our life so far, and how we can integrate the changes we need into our day-to-day routine. But in terms of the challenges, there can be tension between knowing our path and actually taking action, because we know the right things to do often, but it's just taking the day-to-day action to make these changes possible, as I said at the beginning of the week, right? So to make the most of today's energy, start your morning by reflecting on where you're feeling stuck in your life and what actions you've been hesitating to take. The moon's north node going direct and the first quarter moon phases is actually giving us the permission to get out of our comfort zone and out of the things that are keeping us stuck and stagnant and stopping us from growing, so we can move forward, especially in areas connected to our deeper purpose and spirituality. Mercury's sister quadrant to Pluto, if we channel this intense mental energy into important research, transformative conversations, or deep problem solving, rather than power struggles and arguments, which is the dark end of Pluto, right? It's a perfect aspect, as I said, for detective work, going deep and discovering what's really going on. Just be mindful of your tone, as words can carry weight and impact today. Switch gears from external action to internal processing as the moon god's void of course, and this is your astrological astrological cue, you know, to journal about insights that you've gained, meditate on your path forward, or simply give yourself space to integrate the day's revelations, you know. Don't force outcomes during this time. The universe is asking us to trust the process, and by working with today's energy rather than against them, we can transform this potent astrological day into a significant turning point in our karmic and life journeys in general, you know, and we can just clarify our direction, what we want, and it empowers us in our communication, and it gives us space to absorb profound changes and information, right? On the 4th of June, the moon's north node goes retrograde, the moon enters Virgo, and the sun makes a quintile to Neptune. Venus also makes a semi-sextile to Uranus as well. So yeah, the moon's north node going retrograde allows us to go inward, you know, and reconsider where we're at in our journeys. The moon entering Virgo allows us to turn our emotional attention towards refinement, change and improving things. You know, it's given us that spiritual perfectionist energy, but remember not to be too overcritical with yourself and others. The sun's quintile to Neptune sort of energy once again, and Venus's subtle semi-sextile to Uranus allows us to focus on change, you know, and it allows us over the next few days to let our practicality meet our dreams, our ideas, and you know, allows us to, you know, focus on relationship stability by taking it away. So, you know, we've got the Jupiter semi-sextile to Uranus governing us all of this week, and then with these energies, you know, it's given us that shaking us up outside of our comfort zone, but it's a good energy to work on our creative and spiritual projects as well. Gives us that grounding to take our ideas and make them something we can touch, making them something we practically change in our life as well. It allows us to sense what's going on beneath the surface because our intuition gets an upgrade as well. It also supports us with reconnecting with our authentic purpose as well, and it gives us a portal to revisit old soul contracts we may have made, karmic lessons, spiritual lessons as well. In relationships, Venus' semi-sextile to Uranus gives us the motivation and of unexpected excitement without completely disrupting our emotional security. It's a great full date night, you know, reconnecting with those you love, asking someone out on a date, something like that, having a date night with yourself. But we just need to watch out for maintaining our boundaries. You know, the Neptune energy can make us just want to love being lied to and ignore those red flags, or being delusional, as we're caught between, you know, being inspired and delusion, as Neptune's fog can blur the lines between, you know, the practicality that the Taurus sun wants us and lead us into wishful thinking. The Virgo moon can also have us overthinking spiritual, psychological or intellectual insights rather than simply experience them. And with the moon's north node energy, we may feel ourselves feeling stuck about our direction and questioning too much, you know. And the Venus Uranus energy can bring out minor tension and disagreements in our relationship, or we may desire more freedom or have unexpected emotional restrictions, you know, or reactions as well, because someone may be like, I want to just be alone tonight, you know, and you may have already planned a date night, and someone may get angry and this can cause tension, you know. So just be careful of how you word things. Of course, don't be a people pleaser and walk on eggshells or nothing like that, but there's ways that we can go about things, you know. Don't just not turn up for a date night, or just send a text when a voice note or phone call could be more kind of acceptable, you know. So the best ways to use today's energies to meditate, create vision boards, look at your vision board, you know, make an outline of what you want to manifest in your life, and write down the practical steps you need to do to manifest your creativity, you know. Think about your soul, higher purpose as well. Introduce small but meaningful changes that honour both security needs and the desire for newness and freshness, you know. This may look like trying new activities with long-term partners, or bringing innovative perspectives to establish connections. Create space for analytical thinking and intuitive flow, you know, as these energies work best when we make them dance together, rather than thinking, oh, I have to just be in my logical mind, or I just have to be in my intuitive mind, and making them compete, you know. The universe is giving us permission today to be both practical and magical. So yeah, On the 5th of June, Venus makes a sextile to Jupiter, which is exact at 3:31 a.m. and Venus is in Aries and Jupiter is in Gemini, and Mercury makes a sextile to Mars as well, and this is exact at 11:09 today, and Mercury is in Taurus and Mars is in Cancer. So today's energy again allows us to improve our confidence and how we communicate as well. Venus in Aries sextiling Jupiter in Gemini again allows us to socialize and be more romantic as well and take the initiative in our relationship as well. Jupiter's influence here helps us to expand our ability to connect through meaningful conversation. Mars in Cancer helps us to be sensitive while being honest when communicating as well. So this earth-water connection between the planets today create a beautiful balance between saying what must be said, Mercury, and caring about how our words impact others emotionally, which is represented by Mars being in Cancer. So this rare combination allows us to be both direct and diplomatic, which is a superpower in both our personal and professional relationships. So we can find ourselves having breakthrough conversations that feel more both exciting and grounding at the same time. So in terms of the wins and losses of today, the wins are that we can have an increase in our magnetic social charm, have more confidence to approach new people or to say the things we've been dying to say in our existing relationships. We can be more creative and inspired in our thinking and action. It can allow us to balance being honest with emotional intelligence, which is always needed. It gives us the courage to express needs without being aggressive. It allows us to follow through on inspiring ideas. It gives us financial opportunities and the ability to make beneficial connections, relationships with others, networking. You know, you may be stuck on a creative project, you may need an investor, one may come for one of you, or you may just decide to invest in yourself. You know, in terms of the challenges, we can overpromise due to being too enthusiastic, right, which is the effect of Jupiter's energy today. We can be impatient with the slower processes, responses of people. This is represented by Venus in Aries, and there can be an inner conflict between wanting excitement, the Aries Gemini energy, right, versus the need for security, represented by the Taurus Cancer energies today. And there's a risk of being too cautious with Mercury being in Taurus, right? So it's important to, you know, sort of like be careful of being too protective in our emotional reactions, especially if our ideas are challenged as well. So the best ways to make today's energy work to us is prioritize our communication and the things we need to do, socialize. It's a great energy, as I said, for creative brainstorming, romantic connections, networking, right? It's a fantastic day to pitch ideas, go on dates, have important relationship talks, or make financial decisions that balance growth and security. The key is to be open to both the expansive, optimistic energy of Venus and Jupiter and the practical, emotional, intelligent approach with the Mercury and Mars energy, you know. So on the 6th of June, Mercury makes a square to the Moon's North Node at 1:28 a.m. Mercury enters Gemini at 4:57 a.m. The Moon enters Void of Course at 19 minutes past 3 p.m. Then the Moon enters Libra at 3:37 p.m. and then Mars enters Leo at 9:42. And Mars also makes a quincunx to the Moon's North Node at 7:35 a.m. And this happens when Mars is in Cancer and the Moon's North Node is in Aquarius. And Mercury square to the Moon's North Node happens when Mercury is in Taurus, right? So today's energy allows us to sort of like have a mental glow up, so it allows us to be more curious in our thinking, which a lot of aspects this week allows us to do, but we can feel like we're being pulled between our comfortable routines and the innovative energy of today that wants us to get outside of our comfort zone and take the risk that is necessary for growth, you know. And there can be a disconnect between our current mindset where our soul knows that we need to go. So again, like the big the big thing today is, you know, getting outside of our comfort zone and staying in it, right? So, you know, we can just sort of like feel like today's energies with Mars in Cancer and the North Node in Aquarius can make us just feel like we're trying to parallel park a submarine, our instinctive ways of asserting ourselves and our future direction, and switching things up. Mars going into Leo, and I've done a longer special on this, so check out the playlist, right? Wants us to transform our energy from being defensive and protective, right, to being expressive and brave. A lot of the time when, especially a lot of this week's planets want us to change, and we can get defensive, like, we want to stay in our comfort zone, right? So ultimately today's energy allows us the chance to collaborate, rethink and adjust and change our actions and seek greater harmony between our current position and our future direction, if we are willing to deal with the temporary awkwardness that today's bring, which is it wants us to get outside of our comfort zone, engage in deep and different conversations and gather information without immediate judgment, and express ourselves with curiosity rather than certainty, allowing ourselves to question our outdated thinking patterns that may be blocking our way forward, and as the moon slips into Libra, it wants us to go from critical analysis to seeking harmony. It provides a social counterbalance to today's energy that can make us just be, overthinking in our head. Libra energy wants us to focus on finding balance in our partnerships, in our inner world as well, in our mindset as well, and sort of like channeling today's tension into creative action and having more courage on expressing our authentic self rather than just staying in, old, outdated energy without people pleasing, and without being codependent as well and detached on our comfort zone, and just being able to recognise where our actions may feel out of sync with our longer goals and having the courage to change the way that we are doing things. On the 7th of June, Mercury makes a sextile to Chiron, Venus makes a semi-sextile to Saturn, the Moon enters void of course, the Moon also enters its gibbous moon phase, Mercury makes a biquintile to Pluto, and the Moon enters via combustion, right? So with Mercury forming aspects to both the wounded healer Chiron and the transformative Pluto, while Venus dances with the structured Saturn, we are being handed that astrological permission slip to name our pain, transform our thinking and mature in our relationships all within a single day, but it can be really hard to handle the need to be healing in our communication with ourselves, being more gentle and empathetic with our words and thoughts, and navigating the tricky emotional waters that is happening today. And with the moon going into via combustion, which is between the 15th degrees of Libra and the 15th degree of Scorpio, where it's going to stay for the next couple of days, right? It's giving major healing breakthrough with a side of emotional intensity energy today is, right? So Mercury in Gemini making a sextile to Chiron is giving us the opportunity to have healing conversations. As I said, words can become bandages today. We can find the perfect words and language to express something even if it's painful, and that's been living rent free in our mind. And Mercury's biquintile to Pluto allows us to go into super detective mode in our thinking and talking, allowing us to spot patterns between and unlock secrets with almost scary accuracy. So it gives us that psychic vibes today, allowing us to even find problems and solutions to problems. That's what I'm trying to say. Even if they've been kind of hard to find, even if we thought about how can we change this and we haven't come up with the answers, this energy, this biquintile allows us to have the courage to confront wounds and the insight to understand the deeper origins of our trauma, and to, sort of like just be gentle with ourselves as we do it. It's basically astrological therapy without that hourly rate today. It gives us that kind of reality check, where it brings, Saturn in Pisces forming a semi-sextile to Venus in Aries is giving us that adult energy to transform our relationships and finances. It creates gentle friction between our desires for freedom and our need for newness, spontaneous happenings, and it also allows us to question our needs for our emotional boundaries and spiritual commitment versus the need for freedom and being spontaneous also, so we can notice like tensions around spending today, our relationship pace or emotional expectations. This isn't about raining on your parade, it's more like the universe offering a gentle reality check that helps us build more ethical and authentic connections with ourselves and others, and that become more sustainable and meaningful in the long run, although it may be painful dealing with the facts or people's feelings and secrets that can come out today, right? And with the moon entering via combustion, our emotions can intensify dramatically, and traditionally, it can be like emotional quicksand, but especially if we resist the transformative lessons that the moon in via combustion, it's like the time of the month where we're being forced by the moon to deal with our emotions, and we can block it out, just ignoring this urge if it comes up, or we can just lean into it, and with the moon going into its gibberish phase as well, it allows us to change the things we need to emotionally. So both the moon entering via combustion and the gibberish phase is allowing us to refine our emotions, to change them, to build on what needs to be built on in our relationship, even though it may be difficult. Today, it's best to focus on heart-to-heart conversations and confront long-standing hurts, have forgiveness talks or healing discussions, and we can really thrive today if we're open to that. We can channel the Mercury Pluto by quintal by journaling about our feelings, the patterns that we've noticed in our life that's holding us back, and researching topics that help us understand our deeper motivations, why we do the things we do. The Venus Saturn aspect works best for us today when we make small thoughtful changes rather than dramatic overhauls. Think of it as a gentle sort of like nudge that wants us to make a plan to change our boundaries or clarify our expectations, rather than rush straight in and just think we need to do everything all at once, and we just need to allow ourselves to create space as we go into the weekend for emotional processing by sort of like listening to meditation music, doing yoga, tai chi, or anything else that can help us, like artistic expression. It can just feel like a day where we can level up emotionally, spiritually and psychologically. If we are willing to do the work this week, we can really begin and continue the work of healing all old wounds and learning about the power of communication and maturing our approach to relationships if we are open to it. So so this week is all about growth, as always, and looking after yourself and those you care about. So I'm Amani, your holistic karmic astrological life coach, and this has been the weekly scopes from the 1st to the 7th of June.